you develop. Do you have any story like that, or?
Oh God, there is this ongoing dumb like meme thing of like, how do I incorporate DMing into my resume? And I'm like, my conflict resolution skills have gotten so much better after doing this podcast. It's very unique with me because it is such a big part of my job that after starting to do QPR, it actually ended up making alpha a little bit more reputable because we offer like D&D lessons, like how to play the game and stuff like that. And now that they can be like, the DM of Quid Pro Roll sits on with you one-on-one, and people are like, wow, that's really impressive. And it's like, I am still the same loser, guys. I am the same person. But it makes it more impressive and it makes it sound cooler. And honestly, one of the best things that I've benefited from is I've got to meet like really cool people. I've got to do like really cool stuff. And one of the biggest surreal moments for me was you'll get fan art and you'll have people that you do not know that come up to you and are like, yeah, I'm a huge fan. And it's like,
why?
Are you talking to me? Yeah, it's like, hold on. You know we're Quid Pro Roll, not critical. Oh, no, you do mean Quid Pro Roll. Okay. And then you just sort of internally scream for 5 straight minutes. It's really surreal because you think you'll feel like a different person and you don't. It's amazing. It's awesome. It's such a great experience. But you don't feel like you're different. You just feel like a person that now people are really excited when you walk into a room, and it's very weird.
For the audience in here and the audience at home that may be watching this, if you've got a favorite RPG podcast, stuff like that, send them fan art, send them email, say you like the show. That feedback is literally our batteries.
Makes
Like the more we get that, the more we want to do it.
iTunes reviews,
whatever it can be to help us and just let know that we're not screaming into the void. Because the more we get feedback, it's like ambrosia, because we just know that people are out there enjoying what we produce.
There are a lot of times that people will be like, well, they're so cool, I don't want to like bother them. It's like, no, bother us, please, for the love of God. Tell us things that we're doing that work for you, because
but obviously don't get creepy about it, but give us some good feedback and we'll let you know if you're going a hair too far. Promise that. But other than that, in my story for like how I succeeded, I can't go into a lot of detail either, but by doing RPG podcasts, I love RPGs, been doing it forever, probably all have, is I wanted to do some writing for RPGs. And because I put on my CV that I've been doing these RPG podcasts and I've been working on this fan content that was out for the public consumption and all this other stuff, I got one of my first writing gigs that way. Like, part of what this can do in succeeding in the real world is taking your skills and showing people that have money that want to make things, going, this person is committed. They know their stuff. They know the thing they're doing, and they want to do it. And you can't be like, we can't ask for a better person, because we know that person's already doing all this work for no money. And think of what they'll be able to do if we give them money. So it feels like a lot of work. It can be exhausting, but it can, if you do it right, if you pivot right, it can be very rewarding, both financially and personally. So that's sort of like the good thing, the succeeding part, as it were. As for like going back on failures, I think on failures is back when I started Polyhedron and the actual plays. For me it was kind of just our friends goofing around. I didn't take it as seriously. I did learn all the skills I needed to learn, but we didn't really have the sit-down conversations. Now we're in a good place because we do think this is a fairly casual hobby thing. You guys obviously do a very professional product, which I applaud you for. But for us, it's more of a hobbyist thing. What?
I said the first time anybody said our show was professional.
You're probably more professional than mine, so I'll just take it. Also, that's just a little caveat because we've talked about this occasionally. Going into this, think about, try to set realistic expectations, or try to have no expectations or very little, because some people get into this going, especially when this was taking off after Critical Role and everyone saw, oh, people really like this type of content. They set their expectations way too high. They thought they were going to be the next big star. They thought they were going to be next to Critical Role. And I know people may have said in the RPG industry, like the Matt Mercer effect. that is just a reality of people setting their expectations way too damn high, and they just need to come down to reality. Luckily, it's getting better, but it's the idea that it's hard to make money and to do it really well. The only two that I know that have done it super well, Critical Role and LA by Night, because they have entire studios backing them. Plus, they have professional actors, voice actors, and performers. So, unless you've got that level of caliber, it's going to be much harder for you to hit that bar. So, just rein it in a little bit, because you'll. It's like if you have lower your expectations, you'll always be surprised.
I would say expect nothing but appreciate everything.
That's a great way to put it.
The bar has been set so low, you're practically playing a game of limbo down below, huh?
Yeah, it can be like that, but obviously you want to have expectations for yourself. You want to try to be professional. You want to try to say, hey, I'm going to try to do the best job I can with what I've got. But beyond that, don't try to be like, I'm going to be the next hot shit and everyone's going to know it. That comes in time because no one likes that person.
I'll try to get the top dog immediately.
Yeah, no.
Wait.
Start small, work your way up.
Well,
Yeah.
also, everybody wants to be Matt Mercer, but Matt Mercer's already Matt Mercer. I mean, there are things that he does that are stellar as a DM. There's stuff that he does that I don't necessarily agree with, like philosophically as a DM, but he has his skill and his niche. If you are going to discern yourself and stand out, you can't be trying to just copy him because you cannot physically, psychologically, philosophically be Matt Mercer. You just won't be able to do that. And you're just going to kind of get lost in his shadow if you don't accept that you're not going to be that.
Everyone can sniff out an imitator. It's just that's because part of podcasting and just the history of podcasting, the reason people like podcasts, they start out being very genuine. They start out being very honest with people. And if you're not honest, unless you're really good, people are going to be able to understand that you're just kind of putting on a facade. And that can work in some industries like wrestling, but it's probably not going to work in what you're trying to do right here. So let's go to the idea of, we've talked about equipment. We talked about sort of how to get started. What are some good tips for what you think good best practices? Other than what stuff just be professional, that like some really like key like things that you think would set you up for that next level.
Oh, remember to save all the time on your editing file.
In fact, what I do is when I'm editing, I immediately make a copy and then I edit that copy. So that way, if anything does happen to that file, like it gets corrupted or something, I can just have to start from the beginning, but I have the one that's not all messed up.
Back up all your files.
Yeah, backup files is a great
Yep.
tip.
Because nothing sucks more than having to go back and edit like 2 hours of work. It's awful, especially if there's an issue with like one person's audio, but another person's audio is perfectly fine. Then you got to get that one person in. They got to do the lines over again, and then you have to start mixing it together. That's just a nightmare.
This is going to be a little bit different from my whole like be professional all the time kind of advice that I keep giving. Don't lose the thing that made you want to do this in the first place. If you're doing this to be famous, you're not going to last. If you are doing this because you really are passionate about what you're doing, either you're really passionate about this campaign or you're passionate about getting to do something with your friends, if you hold on to that, you are going to, in one way or another, be genuine enough to find some kind of following. But if you lose the thing that is supposed to be the core of it, your love of your narrative, your love of your friends, your love of the story that you're doing, just the love of RPGs in general, if you lose that, it's going to just become drudgery work and it's going to turn into a nightmare.
100%. I guess my little sort of a setup to getting yourself to the next step. This is a do as I say, not as I do. I'm terrible at social media. I'm awful at it. I should do a lot more for my podcast and everything, but I don't because it's just a piece. It's like spaghetti to me when I look at it because there's just so much out of it. But try to get good at that. Try to get on Twitter, get on Facebook, network with people at conventions, talk to people, get an audience. It sucks and you've got to do it a lot and you feel like you're annoying the piss out of everyone because no one likes advertisements. because that's what you're kind of doing when you're throwing your stuff out there. You're like, hey guys, buy my quote unquote product, but you're not.
It's free though.
But you've got to get over that. You've got to be like, no, this is how I connect with people. Some people just literally search hashtags and can find your stuff that way. So if you don't hashtag your stuff on Twitter or on Instagram, guess what? They're not going to find it. It's just a thing.
If you've got a full cast too, you can also Quid Pro Roll does, and I think you guys do this as well. Everybody has their own kind of job.
Mhm.
Like Alon, who plays Johannes on the podcast, he does so much of like the networking and social media stuff because he's amazing at it. Whereas I show up and I'm like, hello, I am a human being that can talk words, good stuff.
I
Hi.
prepared this statement.
I'm not allowed to do the social media stuff anymore.
Yeah, it's you. We understand each other
Yeah.
here.
I work so when we try and have guests on for the Patreon, we reach out through Twitter or whatever. And for instance, Jack Packard from Red Letter Media, loved the show, wanted to have him on, reached out to him. The way that I send messages typically is that I give the person all the information that I would want to hear, which is all the information. So it was word vomit, and then Phil was like, "No, you're not allowed to do this anymore," because all of his messages are like one sentence. Just
No.
boop. Mine's a paragraph, paragraph, paragraph.
You gotta punch and let them want more.
I
That's
know
what you gotta
now
do.
what I'm supposed to do, but I didn't. I
yeah,
would also say research, by the way.
yeah.
Research all like as much as you can, other stuff. Even if you're going to do something like a Patreon, because a lot of shows end up doing Patreons for the fans. Look at what other shows are doing and
Mhm.
don't go too crazy at first. Like start out kind of small, like we did. We went way too crazy. But like start out small, research what other shows are doing, cherry pick ideas, see which ones like look at other shows' Patreons and say, oh, I like this idea. Oh, I like this idea. And you can modify them. You don't have to do the exact same thing.
You can change them at a split notice. So
Mhm.
so if things are, that's another thing about pacing and all that other stuff is like if you're doing Patreon and doing social media, make sure you can fulfill what you said you can fulfill. Just like at
Absolutely.
Kickstarter and all this other stuff, the growing pains of crowdfunding is, can you provide the content to your audience? Being consistent is one thing, but if you got a Patreon, generally they want a little something more. Some are happy just to give you money and you can say nothing else on there.
My favorite.
But if you really want the bigger dollar signs, you're going to have to do more work, and you got to realize, can I do all this extra work and provide a quality product to them?
I mean, you can always add more as time goes on, but it's harder to take stuff away and justify it to the people who are paying money for things.
Correct.
And there's one bit of advice I would give on Patreon. Don't do, and it was given to me by Brian Ibbett, who's a much bigger podcaster, if anybody knows him. He said, never, ever on your Patreon put merchandise as one of the things, because that's something you have to pay for to then send out, and you got to pay for the shipping and all that stuff. And then, okay, so somebody signed up for the level that gives a t-shirt. What do they get next month? Is it a different t-shirt? Like, what is it? So it sounds good, like in theory, but it doesn't actually work out in the end. The Patreons, it's better if you can basically do everything for as little cost to yourself as possible, because the Patreon should be helping to fund the show, to like improve it, to do other stuff. So like,
Unless you're bringing in a lot of money, like a lot of money to really do that. That's how kind of Kickstarter dealt with, because a lot of things couldn't fulfill Kickstarter roles because they provided too much physical content to send to people, and they ran out of money. And then they had to have another Kickstarter just to fund the extra
Kickstarter
goals.
to fund the Kickstarter.
Correct. Same thing with Patreon. Don't try to provide like physical things or shipping, because that's insanely expensive now. But the idea of, can you fulfill these goals? A lot of the patrons are like, get an extra episode or
Discord
or a different game or access to a Discord, which is really great.
Discord is a great tool for a reward because it grows your community. And if you're good at organizing it and doing like community interwork, you can really create a self-thriving community for your listeners, which is awesome.
Yeah, Discord in networking. That's what we've said before. That's another way to succeed, is make sure you network. You're all here at a convention. Congratulations, you've started networking. You got to take a few more steps, but you can start networking. You get to know people on panels, even audience members, and you talk about things that you like and things. Oh, we like the same thing. Here's my business card. Here's my contact information, and you start communicating, because that's really what the network is. Everyone, even people who really succeed, they're still people. They still connect with people. Sure, they have different, limitations on them, expectations, but overall, they're still just people, and everyone wants to connect and everyone wants to try to succeed, because part of the community is bringing each other up. Just like you talked about guests and getting guests, which is very important. TTRPGs can be a little weird trying to get guests on, because you generally have like a continuity, a narrative, and it's hard to be like, hey, there's a halfling here, and he's from this other podcast, and he's only going to be here for an episode. It's like that can get a little.
He's gonna die.
Patreon side episodes, however.
Yes.
That's what we do the guests for.
Yeah.
We don't bring on guests for the regular episodes, because again, you basically introduce them and then kill them immediately for regular episodes.
Dan Harmon did that with like Hero Quest or whatever he did.
Harmon Quest.
Harmon Quest, and I was like, what is going on? This is so weird, because it would just be because he had to like kill off or remove the guest because it wasn't consistent. So it was kind of felt like nonsense, but that's my own sensibilities.
It's Dan Harmon.
But it's Dan Harmon.
Nonsense.
Yes.
That's
There
the
is
fun
a
of it.
reoccurring bit within Quid Pro Roll that like my players always completely go off, and I don't get to do all this lore that I very clearly had prepared. So we actually have an entire side podcast that's very, very lightly edited. If you're gonna do like an extra like bonus thing for Patreon, make it very, very lightly edited. Called Alarian Archives, where it's literally just me being like, here's like lore stuff that I didn't get to talk about,
your
but
setting.
like here
cool.
are the individual districts of the city of Tinkerhaven and the different socioeconomic classes that live within. And I'm very wigged out that I have people who are like, this is super interesting, I wish this went into the podcast. And I'm like, they had a donkey dating show, what more do you want from me?
Yeah. I can only do so much. I have all the power of a god and can't do anything with it. They're really in control. Yeah. So yeah, that's actually a good point. Just like a normal game, if you're producing something, trying to harangue your players, try to definitely have that session 0 of these are the expectations for the game itself, not the podcast, the game itself. Like how much lore are you going to do? What players want to get out of it? Because they're maybe there to entertain the audience, but they're also there to have some fun themselves. So they want. We just did Trinity Continuum Anima that will be out shortly on YouTube. But one of the things that we did, the GM Eddie was like, we're doing a session 0, and these are the things that we have to go over. We did all the X card stuff, all the good safety materials, but we also did like what Eddie was like, what's a cool scene that you want your character to be in by the end of the game? I will try to engineer that, like big moments, things to make the player excited. Because again, like a normal game, you want them to be entertained, because if they're entertained, they'll be more excited. They'll be more entertaining on the podcast. Because if everyone's just treating like a know nothing job, there's not going to be any excitement, some authenticity to it. So that's important. It's very important. I know there's a lot of like rambling that we're doing, but I promise they're all connected in some weird way. So we do have about 15 minutes left. I know some people have already piped up. If you do have questions, please go up now and we'll talk about it. If you have issues, or you have tips, that's perfectly fine too. Yes, sir.
What do you do to combat like burnout from all the editing and playing constantly? And how do you avoid the podcast becoming your entire life if you have other responsibilities that you have to take care of?
So we had said this, I think it might have even been before you came in the room.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
that-
apologize.
No,
It's a good question.
Not your fault.
That the way that we do it is when we record 2 episodes a night, so it ends up being about a 3-hour session.
Mm.
And by doing that, we're only releasing 1 episode a week, but that automatically starts creating a bank of episodes. So then usually when we do start to get a little bit burnt out, we can take a break, and then for like a month or whatever, and we still have like 10 episodes or 15 episodes in the bank or whatever it is. And then you can still be releasing content, because you definitely want to release every single week, no matter what, if you can help it. So by doing that, having that bank, now granted, the person who's doing the editing will still have to edit it, but if they want to take a break, I guess they could just edit a bunch of episodes at once, which is very time consuming, but it's,
Or ask someone else to.
or ask someone else to
Yeah.
do it on the group, or, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's what I would recommend.
For me, because of COVID, and we did all of our Star Wars stuff online. We did it in person for like a couple of sessions, but then we had to go online, and I got all of them done. All the editing, all the issues. Sorry, apologize. All the episodes are there. All the sessions are done. So I have content for the next 6 months that like everyone will be hearing us from 6 months in the past because I don't have to sit down and do any actual game sessions. All I have to do is the editing. That's another way to do it. You crack out the game and you just get it ready for everyone, and then you release it sort of like a season, and then you're just doing it as it goes, and you're sort of pacing yourself out. That's one advice, one thing I've done. Anything from you?
I am not qualified to answer this question. It has absolutely taken over my entire life.
What is break?
I have no
What is
recollection,
break?
Senator.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not the person to ask on this one.
Okay.
But burnout, that's an individual for me. That's an individual thing. It's something you got to wrestle with. I'm not going to be dishonest about that. But do the things you love, and it will give you energy back. Maybe like Dave said before, get someone else to do the editing for you. Take a back seat. See if you can rearrange yourself to make it work. It also, another honest question, you're seriously burnt out and it's not working, figure out a way to step away. You don't want to rack yourself because you'll do more harm than good mentally and potentially physically if you really try to push yourself too much. It happens all the time. Creatives, willpower and creative are not infinite resources, and we all have lives. So please remember that. Any other questions, comments? Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
No, it did.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else? Questions, comments, topics? We're happy to discuss. They're all consulting with the lawyers.
Hi there. Good morning.
morning.
So I play on the Ballad of the Seven Dice Network, and it's a lot of live Twitch actual play shows. And with us, because it's Twitch, like we can't miss a session because of the algorithm. Like if you miss a session on Twitch, like it's just bad news. So like we have, people come in, oh, I've had a hard day. I can't do this. And we've had to like, a character got kidnapped by a vampire, or like a character turned into a tree, or all this different stuff. So y'all were talking about, consistency, but it's a podcast. So if you know that there's going to be like a pause, or someone's got, or, your players at summer camp, what have y'all done other than like lore episodes, like to kind of fill that gap if you know someone's not going to be there?
Are you talking about like keeping it narratively consistent within the same campaign?
Yes, or just
Okay.
like fun extra stuff that y'all have done.
Keeping the release schedule of the same pace is what I'm getting.
Retrospective episode was the thing that we most recently did, where it was all of us kind of thinking back on like the genesis of what we did and like what we thought it then and what it was now. And our listeners really liked sort of peeking behind the curtain on that. Sometimes you can have, like you said, you can work something narratively in where the player's a little bit more on autopilot. You can also, if you are good at sort of appearing chill when you're dead inside, just sort of taking a back seat as a character, communicate with your GM like, hey, I'm not in a great space tonight. I'm here, and that way the DM or GM can pivot a little bit to focus more on the other characters and let your character be like, you'll be on, but you'll only have to be on for a smaller chunk of time than you would need to be. And it rations out the energy of the group.
Any comments from you?
I mean, we will also, like, if we're not all there, we'll play video games on Twitch together,
community
or like
nights.
watch a movie, or talk about anything, as long as you have to just fill the time slot.
Yeah, so like Mario Kart or something like that, where you can literally just put the code out on Twitch, and then like all of your community can pop in and play with you. Or
As you're role playing your character,
sure,
as playing
that
Mario
does
Kart.
happen.
Yeah.
That is amazing, actually.
Or
Yeah,
doing
Quick
like a
Flash
Mystery
with that is
Science
great.
Theater 3000 sort of thing, where we'll watch some terrible Amazon Prime movie with everybody else and just
Ice spiders.
Great film.
Velocipriest?
Velocipaster.
Velocipaster.
Yeah, something like that. So we do that stuff usually if we're going to take. So like for the last month, we haven't been doing our regular sessions because season 5 ended at a weird time. So that season 6 is about to start, and then Dragon Con prep and stuff like that.
It's
so,
season 6 actually going to premiere at the Crystal Ballroom tomorrow.
That's
10
right.
p.m.
No, it's tonight.
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 What day am I?
As for my comment about that, because your Twitch, I actually have a unique experience about that. My buddy on Simulacra TV is doing that kind of stuff. He's doing TTRPGs, but he's broadcasting on Twitch. He actually records them well before, and he just broadcasts them. He doesn't do them live. Like the chat is live. You can him and other players will totally be in the chat, but the actual action on the screen is not live. And then he puts it on YouTube later. That also could be a good way of handling it, so that you can get that backlog, because he's got months of content that he's editing, but he's just releasing once a week. and he doesn't have to be on all the time. Because I applaud anyone who can do that. Twitch streamers are crazy to me. It's just being so consistent live is mind-boggling to me. So those are some suggestions we have. Anything else?
Question to your question.
Hi.
So you're streaming live on Twitch. Have you thought about downloading your audio and then releasing it also as a podcast?
It's more of a network, so there are some shows that do that. The one I'm in is just like live Tuesday, let's go,
Okay.
and then they put it out on YouTube later. But like the idea of playing video games in character is so great. So thank you for that. That's
Cheers.
awesome. I'm definitely going to suggest that. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Any other questions or topics? We got a few more minutes. Shoot your shot. That's what I always say to people. Because if you don't do it, it will never happen. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So first of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're talking about social media platforms and how to kind of get the word out. What are some of the maybe newer avenues you're looking into? My podcast really doesn't have anything to do with RPG, but I just came down here anyway. But I know that for us, like we've been looking at different ways to kind of get the word out through some newer versions of social media. So I'm just wondering what works well for you guys in that avenue.
So this is actually a little bit more for my store than it is for the podcast, but we actually do TikToks. As terrifying as TikToks are, and as much as I was resistant to them in the beginning, it is sort of a very popular and it's a much younger audience for the most part, but it probably has, because it is the lowest amount of time and energy buy-in for the listener and the audience, it tends to be a really, really effective way to promote. And it also, all of the content that you put out on TikTok doesn't always have to be exclusively content for what you make. It can also be a little bit of a showcase on who you are. And if they care about you, they are far more likely to care about the podcast.
Very true. Anything from you guys?
We started on Instagram recently doing a thing where, so while I'm editing the episode, bless you,
What's
I
your
will-
TikTok?
What's your TikTok? Yes. Where while I'm editing, I'll take a 30-second clip and I'll send it to the person on our show, Jenna, that does the social media, and she'll put like a graphic up and the text as it's going, and then just like every few days plop one of those out. So then somebody who just is looking through hashtags or something like that can get like a 30-second clip to get an idea of what the show's like. And usually it's like the more ridiculous stuff that I pull out anyways.
Yeah. What's your funniest 30 seconds of the episode, or an idea that we don't actually do yet, but that we could? We just bought a camera. So if you're streaming live on Twitch, you've got all your panels and everything. So that's not a great TikTok video, but you could also have a camera in the room that you could go through the video and audio of and just get a 30-second thing to throw up there, as well as like the audio of your best moments, and then hashtag it.
Audiograms are really useful for that exact purpose.
It's funny you mentioned TikTok, because I just only had the idea of do a TikTok but in character. That way people are like, oh, that's a funny bit you did. Oh, I have hours of content with this character that I have that you like, that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely TikTok. Some advice: Facebook is not the best place to go. If you make what they say, this was not my advice. This is somebody who gave it to me. Make a group. Don't make a page. Make a group that's a little bit more inclusive. Discord's a great way. That's a very modern. If you can get people to start coming into your Discord, even if it's not just solely about your podcast, but other things too, that can grow people because they get to curate their own experience. Yeah, then TikTok and Instagram. I'm not the biggest social media person, so I can't answer beyond what they have all said. But unfortunately, that's just an always evolving thing. Like there are professionals out there that I've had on panels that are like, I do this professionally, and it's hard to keep up with just because the algorithms are secret. Everyone's trying to make it big through social media. It's just a lot of everything, a lot of noise, an insane amount of noise, and you got to find out what you hook where you can. And I understand your plight, and I sympathize greatly with it. Hopefully, we've helped a little bit.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions, topics? We got like a couple minutes left. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here then. Where can everyone find you on the social media, since we were just talking about that?
On the socials of the medias.
Mhm.
Anything that is Alpha Comics and Games or Quid Pro Roll, Twitter it's at Quid Roll, and Alpha Comics and Games is at Alpha Comics Games. I don't have a lot of personal ones, but you can always link to me on those because I live there.
Mhm. You guys?
So Botched a D&D podcast is on all your podcatchers and YouTube and Twitch and all that jazz. But you can find me on the internets at World's Most Okayest DM, except for Twitter because not enough characters, so World's Okayest DM. But Friday, actually, I launched my first ever comic book on Kickstarter. It just went over 50% funded in 2 days, so not bad. So if you could, even please, I have a whole bunch of these little postcards. I would love to have it back before the end of Dragon Con would be amazing, because I had shelved this idea more than 10 years ago, and then my first year Dragon Con is what sort of resurrected doing the idea. So for the last 5 years, I've been working on this. So it would be awesome if I then, got it funded before the end of Dragon Con. Just in case you're wondering, it's a comic book about the world's first werewolf. So,
Neat.
and it'll be an ongoing series. So different time periods and different countries and mythologies and folklores and stuff like that.
Very cool.
Botchedpodcast.com.
Watch podcast.
Botchedpodcast.com.
Go ahead. We'll do this first.
So Dragon Con's official charity for 2021 is going to be Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta. Dragon Con Dollar for Dollar is going to match donations up to $100,000. So every dollar you donate turns into $2. There's a whole lot of stuff that they're doing for this. If you wish to donate, you can do so via your phone. That includes you, people watching on Twitch. You can text Mentor to 243-725. I think the link is going to be dropped in the comments. Thank you. And you guys can help support a really great cause.
Yes, please.
Do we have a cash bucket here for that?
Yeah. If you've got money on hand, you can go
Is
right
that
over
the-
there on your way out the door.
Nice.
As for me, I am at BioImportance on Twitter. My podcast on Twitter is at PolyhedronCast. You can also just email the show at polyhedronpodcast@gmail.com. Also look at Simulacra TV, also known as Simulacra Studios on YouTube and Twitter, because I'm also there and it's also my buddy's stuff. But other than that, everyone else, have a really good rest of your Dragon Con. Be safe.
Also, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be hanging out in the lobby if anyone has
Yeah.
any questions or wants to talk about D&D.
Tonight, Crystal Ballroom, 10 p.m. Botch Podcast Season 6.
Boss Butcher.
Watch.
That's why I always see more
Oh,
too.
thank you so
Hell yeah,
much.
dude.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
Thank you guys, everyone, for coming out
Thank you.
so early in the
Cheers.
morning. Appreciate you. Yes, I do.
Thank you so much.
I only needed the audio. I
Take
didn't
one,
need the
Chris.
video, so that's kind of
And I know I got to give you the other three back.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
When you say the Crystal Ballroom, I really turn the Blues Brothers up on it.
You guys were great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks for coming.
I had to
Yeah,
fly
thanks
off
for
the
coming.
seat to put my pants on that one because I had nothing prepped.
I'm going to pee my pants.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't realize I was the moderator
Networking.
Yeah,
I
dude.
hear you.
because they got
And, like,
they got shifted around.
Growing your...
That would be fun. I've never.
I read RPGs.
Awesome.
Published a Paizo.
I like your
Oh,
voice,
you
by
do?
the way.
Oh, do you have a card on it?
I'm trying to find it. Yeah.
I like his jacket.
I know I have them.
Yeah, that's cool, Jack.
Are you actually work for them or are you a freelancer?